As I drove down the lonely highway, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and red. The day had been long, and I found myself craving a warm bed and a hot meal. Lost in thought, I barely noticed when the road began to narrow, the asphalt giving way to a worn, gravelly path. The dense forest seemed to close in around me, the trees casting long shadows across the road. Suddenly, I realized I had no idea where I was. The GPS on my phone had lost signal miles ago, and the map I kept in my glove compartment was of little help in this unexplored territory. As I rounded a bend, I found myself at the edge of a town. The sight before me sent a chill down my spine. The streets were empty, devoid of any signs of life. Abandoned houses lined the road, their windows dark and lifeless, paint peeling from their walls. Overgrown gardens, filled with twisted, gnarled plants, seemed to reach out toward the street, as if trying to reclaim what was once theirs. I brought my car to a stop, the engine's hum fading into an unsettling silence. The air felt heavy, weighed down by an inexplicable sense of emptiness. I stepped out of the vehicle, my footsteps echoing through the deserted streets. The town seemed frozen in time, a snapshot of a forgotten era. As I walked, I searched for any indication of the town's name, but found none. No street signs, no welcome board, not even a single piece of mail with an address. It was as if the town had never been given a name, or perhaps it had been lost to time, forgotten by the world beyond its borders. The sun had now fully set, and the darkness crept in. A sense of unease began to grip me, and I felt the urge to leave, to get back on the road and put this eerie place behind me. However, as I turned back toward my car, I realized with a sinking feeling that I could no longer see the road I had arrived on. Panic rising in my chest, I spun around, desperately searching for a way out. But the streets all looked the same, twisting and turning in on themselves like a labyrinth. The town seemed to be closing in around me, trapping me within its boundaries. With no other option, I resigned myself to seeking shelter for the night. I approached one of the abandoned houses, its door hanging slightly ajar. As I stepped inside, the floorboards creaked beneath my feet, and the musty smell of decay filled my nostrils. I found myself in a dimly lit living room, the furniture covered in a thick layer of dust. As I looked around, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone, that the house held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Little did I know, as I settled in for the night, that this town with no name would soon reveal its true nature, and that my arrival was just the beginning of a journey into the unknown. As the first rays of sunlight crept through the cracks in the boarded-up windows, I found myself awakening to the unsettling stillness of the abandoned house. The events of the previous night came rushing back to me, and I felt a renewed sense of urgency to find a way out of this mysterious town. I began to explore the house, each room revealing a new layer of the lives that once occupied this space. In the kitchen, dishes sat in the sink, as if waiting for someone to return and finish washing them. A thin layer of dust coated the countertops, a testament to the passage of time. As I ventured upstairs, the floorboards groaned beneath my weight, the sound echoing through the empty halls. I entered what appeared to be a bedroom, the bed neatly made, as if its occupant had simply vanished. On the dresser, I found a collection of old photographs, their edges yellowed and curled with age. The faces staring back at me were unfamiliar, but their eyes seemed to hold a secret, a story waiting to be told. Suddenly, a sound from downstairs shattered the silence. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, creaked on the old wooden floors. My heart raced as I listened, trying to determine the source of the noise. I called out, my voice trembling, but no response came. As quickly as they had begun, the footsteps ceased, leaving me once again alone in the stillness. I moved to the bathroom, hoping to splash some water on my face and clear my mind. As I looked into the mirror, I caught a glimpse of a figure behind me, a shadowy silhouette that vanished as soon as I spun around. The room was empty, but the unease that had settled in my gut only intensified. Determined to uncover the truth behind this town, I searched the house for any clues that might shed light on its history. In a study, I discovered a collection of old newspapers, their headlines speaking of a town that had once thrived. But as I delved deeper, the articles grew more sporadic, until they abruptly ceased altogether, as if the town had simply vanished from the public eye. As the day wore on, I found myself drawn back to the photographs I had discovered earlier. I studied them closely, trying to piece together the fragments of the lives they represented. In one photo, I noticed a peculiar detail in the background, a street sign, barely visible, with a name that had been scratched out, leaving only a faint outline behind. The discovery only deepened the mystery surrounding the town. Who had lived here, and why had they left? What had happened to erase the town's name from history? The questions swirled in my mind as I sat on the edge of the bed, the photographs spread out before me. As night began to fall once more, I knew I needed to find a way out of this place. The town's secrets seemed to be closing in around me, and I feared what might happen if I remained trapped within its grasp. Days turned into nights, and nights into days. But the cycle seemed to blur together in this town with no name. I had lost track of how long I had been trapped here, wandering the empty streets and seeking shelter in the abandoned houses. Each day, I would set out with the intention of finding a way out, only to find myself inexplicably drawn back to the same house, as if an invisible force was guiding my steps. The inconsistencies in the passage of time became more apparent with each passing day. The sun would hang motionless in the sky for what felt like hours, only to suddenly plunge the town into darkness without warning. Clocks scattered throughout the houses ticked erratically, their hands spinning wildly or frozen in place, offering no reliable indication of the hour. I began to question my own sanity, wondering if the isolation and the town's surreal nature were taking their toll on my mind. I would catch glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye, only to turn and find nothing there. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, indistinct voices that faded away when I strained to listen. In a desperate attempt to maintain a grasp on reality, I started to keep a journal, documenting my experiences and the strange occurrences that plagued me. I wrote about the photographs I had found, the articles that hinted at the town's forgotten history, and the unsettling encounters that left me questioning the nature of this place. One day, as I sat in the living room of the abandoned house, I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced as I approached, hope and fear intermingling in my chest. When I opened the door, I found myself face to face with a man, his eyes weary and his clothes tattered. He introduced himself as a fellow traveler, someone who had also found himself trapped in this town. We shared our stories, our experiences mirroring each other's in unsettling ways. He spoke of the same inconsistencies in time, the same ghostly figures that seemed to haunt the periphery of our vision. Together, we set out to explore the town, hoping that our combined efforts might yield some answers. But as we walked the streets, we realized that the town seemed to shift and change around us. Buildings that we had passed before would vanish, only to reappear in different locations. Streets would twist and turn, leading us back to where we had started, no matter which direction we chose. The more we tried to make sense of the town's geography, the more it seemed to defy all logic. We would find ourselves separated, calling out to each other in the empty streets, only to be reunited moments later, as if no time had passed at all. As the futility of our efforts became increasingly apparent, a deep sense of despair began to settle over us. The town seemed to be a labyrinth with no exit, a timeless trap that had ensnared us in its grasp. As my fellow traveler and I sat in the dimly lit living room, the weight of our situation bearing down upon us, a realization began to dawn. The clues we had gathered, the snippets of the town's history we had uncovered, all seemed to point to a chilling truth. This town was not a place of the living, but rather a limbo, a space between worlds where lost souls wandered for eternity. The photographs we had discovered, the faces that seemed so familiar yet so distant, were not just images of the past, but reflections of ourselves. The town had drawn us in, just as it had drawn in countless others before us, trapping us in its timeless embrace. As we delved deeper into the town's secrets, we began to uncover the stories of those who had come before us. Through faded journals and forgotten mementos, we pieced together tales of individuals who had found themselves lost in this place, their lives unraveling as they struggled to find a way out. Some had succumbed to despair, while others had clung to hope, but all had eventually faded into the fabric of the town itself. We realized that we were not just trapped in a physical space, but in a cycle of existence, doomed to wander the streets and houses of this town for an eternity. The ghostly figures we had glimpsed, the whispers that had haunted our dreams, were the echoes of those who had come before us, their essences forever bound to this place. As the truth settled over us like a suffocating blanket, we each grappled with the reality of our fate in our own way. My companion chose to rage against the inevitability of our situation, searching for a way to break free from the town's grasp. But I found myself strangely at peace, accepting that I had become a part of something greater than myself. In the end, we both knew that there was no escape. The town had chosen us, just as it had chosen so many others, to become a part of its never-ending story. We were the eternal wanderers, destined to roam these streets and houses, our own stories intertwining with those of the souls who had come before us. As I sat in the abandoned house, the photographs of the past scattered before me, I picked up a pen and began to write my own chapter in the town's history. I wrote of my arrival, my discovery of the town's secrets, and my ultimate acceptance of my fate. I wrote so that those who came after me might find solace in the knowledge that they were not alone, that their stories, too, would become a part of the tapestry of this place. And so, I embraced my role as an eternal wanderer, my existence now forever bound to the town with no name.